you just think about it, we're pretty young and realizing maybe I do need a permanent space for these, or maybe there is a better way to memorialize. And I respect again that's different for each family. But I think cremation memorialization from a cemetery side is really exciting and intriguing. And I think we've done some things at Gilbert and created an experience for people that's meaningful. And I've taken a lot of energy from that and really, really enjoyed the things that I've been able to learn there, and the relationships that you get to make from families that are placed to rest at your cemetery get to be a little bit longer sometimes because you see those families more frequently and over a longer duration of time. And that's been fun to figure out, okay, how can we not just add value in the first week, 2, 3 weeks of them losing somebody, but how do we add value to this family for months and years to come?
Welcome to the Direct Cremation Podcast with your host, Tyler Yamasaki. Hi, thank you for joining us on the Direct Cremation Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Yamasaki, CEO of Parting Pro, the #1 online arrangement platform for funeral homes. If you like the content, please give us a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. So today's guest is more than just a 4th-generation funeral home owner. Not only is he the president of both Bunker Family Funeral Homes and Gilbert Memorial Park Cemetery and Funeral Home in Arizona, but he's also a co-founder of one of the fastest growing cremation businesses in the world today. He's part internet startup, part Deathcare, part investor, and full-time family man. Please welcome to the Direct Cremation Podcast, Bryce Bunker. Hey, Bryce.
Thanks, Tyler. Good to be here. You make me sound a lot more credible than I really am, but I'll take it. So.
Nope, you're just being humble. Those are all true statements that I didn't lie, I didn't embellish. That's just statements of facts.
Well, I'll take them. So no, good to be with you. Look forward to visiting.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. So I want to go back. I did mention that you were a 4th-generation funeral business owner, but your history, it almost feels like you tried exploring other paths, or maybe not going down that path, and you got your feet wet in other areas. So going back, you first graduate from ASU with a BS in biosciences, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then you find yourself exploring west into the land of startups. Can you kind of start us there?
Sure. Yeah. So 4th-generation funeral director, like you said. I'm actually the youngest child in my family. So I have older siblings, and one of my dad's rules was always, if you want to come back to the family business, or if you want to get into the family business, graduate college, go work for someone else, and then come back if you still want to after that. So that was a great kind of a great method for him, but nobody else came back. So it didn't work out so well at first.
You were the last hope, huh?
I was the last hope. In fact, I didn't have the intention of coming back into the family business until, like you said, I graduated from ASU. I was working. My plan was to go to medical school. I worked in a biochemical research lab studying Alzheimer's disease. My plan was to go into medicine. Then started working at a startup and pivoted to more of the entrepreneurial route, moved up to the Bay Area and worked at the startup for a period of time. And during that time, my dad was reaching the latter stages of his career. We actually, the first generation of our family business was in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we didn't move to Arizona until the 60s when my grandfather moved us here. The original family business sold to what is now Carriage, but was different at the time. And my dad just said, I'll never sell our family business again. So we got together as a family, at a family meeting, and said, hey, I'd like to keep this in the family somehow. If nobody's interested in doing it, then maybe we figure it out, a structure that we can run it as a family without an operator. And at that time, like I said, I didn't have any intention of coming back into the family business. It felt a little bit like the easy way out. That was, in retrospect, ignorant thinking, but it felt like the easy way out, and I wanted to do something different. But after that meeting, went home, talked to my wife, and I just had this thought of our family's really built this really, really unique way of serving the community and being a force of good in people's lives at a really difficult time. I grew up hearing people tell me how much they loved and admired my dad and my grandfather and the difference that they made in their lives. And I thought it'd be really sad to let that leave our family. And then more so than that, just some introspection from, what do I really want out of my life? What do I want my life to stand for? And when you have an opportunity to have a healthy family business and also make an impact in people's lives, that's tough to pass up. So I went all in on coming back into the family business. In fact, had already graduated college, but then went back to mortuary school. Came in, started in the care center. I wanted to go through it the way that anybody would need to enter the funeral industry, and it's been a really good move for me and my family, and hopefully for our organization as well.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned that, you kind of wanted to do it on your own. I feel like the entrepreneurial spirit kind of makes you feel like that, but there's a lot of things you can still grow even if you have an already established business. And, I think owning and operating a funeral home isn't actually that dissimilar to working in a startup. You have like that small company feel. Everyone wears a million different hats. You're responsible for many things that aren't on your the job description. You're still responsible for that, and you kind of just have to figure it out. What was your experience working in a startup? What did you like?
It's interesting. Before I worked at the startup, like I said, I worked in a research lab, and so when you study science, the basis for everything is the scientific method. So you identify a problem, have a hypothesis, create controls and things to run an experiment, and then have a conclusion as the results of the experiment that you're in. And I realized that entrepreneurship isn't all that different. You have this hypothesis, you create these controls, and you measure the success of different things over time. And some things work well, some things don't, and you adapt and change. And then going from back into the family business after that, much of the same principles still apply. You want to always be growing, adapting, evolving, trying different things, having successes, having failures, learning what works better to elevate your business and improve the lives of your people, on your staff and the families you serve. And so really, I've just learned over time, you always have to be testing. You have to be trying different things and figuring out what evolutions are necessary for the improvement of your business.
Yeah, I really like that you said that. I like to talk about the whole experimentation thing, because a lot of times what you'll find in multi-generational owners is that there can be this stagnation of innovation, because each successor kind of does the same thing that they were taught, right? And I think your dad actually had a really good idea of sending you out to like learn what else is out there before coming back. What are some of the things that you brought that you've changed or adapt that you were the one that kind of brought that in with the innovation that you saw outside of Deathcare?
Yeah, good question. I mean, first, it would be completely unfair for me to give myself too much credit. My dad is about a dream scenario from a son purchasing a business from his father, as you can imagine. He built our organization to be a place that's respected, both by the people that had worked here previously, respected by the community. He always operated with the highest integrity and compassion. And so when you come into an organization that has those pillars already established, it makes your job a lot easier. I didn't have cleanup to do or anything like that. I mean, it was, in some ways, it was like, okay, Bryce, don't come in and don't mess up what's already been well established. Because my dad has some superpowers that just are better than things that he was better at than I am. But I think, to your point earlier, just testing some different things. We've grown, and obviously being a little bit from an organic growth standpoint, just improving our branding, improving our online acquisition strategy, improving how our brand communicates with the community now, both from like a grassroots level through different hospice campaigns and caregiver reward programs, things of that nature, to, like I said, what our online branding looks like and what our strategy is for customer acquisition, for what I refer to as like those jump balls. It's kind of a silly sports analogy, but where somebody doesn't have a funeral home that they've worked with for generations and they don't know who to use. How do we win those jump balls? So that's one. We've had growth through acquisition, just one small acquisition, but also growth through, we did a ground up cemetery funeral home combo development that was a partnership with the local municipality. That's been an absolute great success for us, and hopefully for the community as well. So I think part of it was just I was young and ambitious and want to want to try different things. And my dad was more the latter stages of his career where he didn't necessarily have the risk appetite to do some of those things. Not that he wasn't capable by any stretch, but it just
Yeah.
time in a season, as you know.
So one thing that I've found is that experimentation is just that, right? They don't always work out. Do you have anything that you thought you were really excited about that you tried that it just didn't work, or that you thought, because I think a lot of people, especially in Deathcare, feel that they don't want to try things because, it is a very high impact job and a career. And so maybe messing with things might not feel like it's the space to make a mistake. But I think that's kind of the only way you're going to grow a lot of times is if you do experiment. So is there anything that you thought was going to work that didn't?
It's a good question. I think off the top of my head, I can't think of something specific that we got to the finish line on and we're like, wow, that was an absolute colossal failure. But I've spent a lot of time on ideas and different things that I wanted to implement that I realized as I got further down the road after spending a lot of time on research and development and things, realized, hey, this probably isn't the right move for us right now. But also I was able to learn, one of my older brothers worked here probably about 10 years before I did. And he's much the same as me. And honestly, I benefited so much from some of the things that he tried that worked well and didn't work well. So I was able to kind of be a witness of history that allowed me to not have to make. I mean, that's what the scientific method is. Going back to that, is sometimes you learn what not to try again by observing it, because I would have if I was in the same shoes at that time. So, but to answer your question, I can't think of anything off the top of my head specifically that was a huge failure. But I'm sure I've had many. Maybe I just try to block them out of my mind so I don't have to think about it.
Or you saw that it wasn't working and you maybe shot it down earlier. I don't know. I just think
you have to know when to let things go, for sure.
I think that mentality is just something that we don't always see enough of, right? Like thinking outside the box or thinking what we can do next. But it does sound like you've, at least for now, you have started on this new journey very recently of opening a new cremation brand, which, by most accounts, you would consider to be showing signs of success right now. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that brand and kind of what the story is behind that?
Sure. So the name of it's after.com. It's an online-based cremation platform, and I'll get into the evolution of that and why in the world I'm a part of that or doing that. First, my personal, I guess, ideology on things is I've never been one that gets overly wrapped up in my own personal preferences. I want to meet people where they are and provide solutions that are meaningful to them. So I don't get overly wrapped up, for good or bad. I'm not saying this is necessarily a good thing, but if people don't want to have a service, I'm still a huge advocate for that. But I'm not going to only do funeral service the way that I think it should be. I think it should be done. So, I opened Gilbert Memorial Park, which is a large, really more of like a reception center, full service, really hands-on type funeral experience. And then a couple of years later started after.com, which is an online based, you don't meet with a funeral director in person, you do everything remotely. And those seemingly live at completely opposite ends of the spectrum. And they do. But as with everything else, consumer preferences can be dramatically different. And my, I guess, personal mission is just to meet people where they are and then provide them based on what their preferences are with the highest level of experience that I possibly can and the highest level of customer service I possibly can. So with after.com, really through the pandemic, which we all had to adopt really, really quickly as funeral professionals. And I think we found some areas where, as you well know, with what Parting Pro is, where we had holes and things that we didn't do well, and some things maybe from an innovation standpoint that we got away with for a long period of time that we couldn't get away with anymore. And many of us have a great solution for families who are seeking really simplified, streamlined solutions. So part of it was understanding where the industry was going in a lot of ways and self-scouting and realizing what threats to my business existed. And then the other part of it was this motivation to, if people are going to go there, how can I meet them there and provide them with a better experience? And not just an experience in terms of getting a cremation that's affordable and streamlined and cost efficient, time efficient, but also leveraging technology to provide these families with fundamental needs that they have when they lose somebody they love. That can be facilitating service, that can be tech-enabled grief support, that can be tech-enabled estate settlement. Some of these things that families fundamentally need when they lose somebody they love, how can we leverage technology to bring those services to them in a way that we don't do a great job of right now. So that's where After was born, and obviously I have partners there who are much better at some of the things than I do from a technology standpoint, or than I am from a technology standpoint. And so bringing our skill sets together, I just believe provided us an opportunity to do something that elevated the experience for families who are seeking more of that streamlined direct cremation experience.
Really interesting, because now it sounds like you own a funeral home, you also own a cemetery, and now you own the cremation brand. So it's kind of you have like something to serve all families with now.
Yeah, I'm all over I've got it feels like I'm all over the place sometimes, not in a good way, but also in a good way in other ways for sure.
So I'm reluctant to like make this comparison because I know you guys are different.
Sure.
I know after.com isn't maybe the first one to go really quickly into the cremation brand.
You can make the comparison. It's not gonna offend me at all. So
all right,
feel free to make it.
There was a brand called, there was a brand called, named after a flower that
sure.
kind of would, from a very high level, taking a step back, did very similar. And
sure,
I don't want to tell any stories that I'm not a part of, but I do know that maybe didn't go as planned. How would you say after.com is different in their approach, in your approach, and how do you find more longevity in this, online cremation brand?
Yeah, it's a great question. Very, very fair question. One, to compliment them, there are some things that they did really well, and they grew a brand and they acquired customers and grew well. And from my understanding, none of them had funeral service experience before. So I'm, complimentary of some of the things that they accomplished. But two, I would say we met them and had a lot of conversations with them before we ever started After. So we weren't ignorant to that somebody had done something fundamentally similar before, and had talked to them about some of the things that went well, some of the things that were challenges for them. So I think we went into it with a plan to mitigate some of those risks that they focused on. Getting back to what I talked about before, sometimes when somebody's been like the canary in the coal mine, it allows you to adapt and do things differently. And from a unit economic standpoint, understand, okay, how do we, because I think the thing that from a business standpoint, a lot of people will ask is, well, how does this work at this price point with a high customer acquisition cost, and you don't have recurring revenue with the customers that we have? So those were all things that we were really cognizant of going in to make sure that we could build out a model that could be sustained over a long period of time and was healthy from a unit economic standpoint. So I guess without getting into too much of a comparison, I'll just say that we had conversations, and we have ongoing conversations with them and the founding team from Tulip before we ever started and through this. A couple of them are still in the Deathcare industry. One of them, I think, has a brand called Earth, which is in you're probably familiar with, and the other one has a beautiful urn company that they're involved with. So we've stayed in contact with them, and we do feel like fundamentally there are key differences that will allow us to be healthy and grow and scale long term.
I think it's very fun and inspiring to see like new entrants doing things differently, using technology, creating new like shiny businesses that aren't super typical in Deathcare, because like I said before, I don't think innovation is happening quicker now, but it's still very slow when you look at innovation cycles within most other industries. Sure. So it's very, I salute you guys, and I've obviously seen what you guys have done, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, no, we're excited about the growth. Like you said, though, a lot of times you look at startups and fast growing companies as like the shiny object, and there's some truth to that. On the reality, though, sometimes SMBs get a bad rap, and some of the best businesses that you can have are a really healthy a really healthy SMB, like a funeral home, is. So, I mean, a company like After, we're working hard to try to reach some of the success levels that these funeral homes have operated under for generations in some instances.
Yeah.
So we are very complimentary of and acknowledge the great service that local funeral homes provide to their community.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think in the earlier, the late teens of the 2010s, I think growth was always on top of mind for everyone at the
Yeah,
cost of sometimes, good business metrics and
sure.
solid foundations for
Yeah,
financials. And recently it's kind of completely flipped, and you look at all
yeah,
these small businesses that have just been, chugging along with a good healthy EBITDA margin, and you're like, wow, I wish
yeah,
we could have had that from the beginning.
yeah. No, it's the landscape's totally changed over the last couple of years from, like you said, growth at all costs to actually a healthy run business with scalable margins. And some of these corrections are really important and a good thing long term.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I've heard you're a bit of an angel investor.
Oh yeah, that might be overstating it a little. No, I guess yeah, I am. My family and I, my brothers and my dad do a little bit, but yeah.
Well, so for those that aren't necessarily familiar with that term, I guess an angel investor is someone who usually gives money to a company very early on, maybe at the thought, just to kind of, see where it goes. Is there anything interesting that you've invested in that it doesn't have to be death care
Yeah.
related?
No, it's a good question. I mean, we've been a little bit all over the map in some of the different things we've done. Honestly, my favorite part about it, sure, you hope that you get good returns when you make investments in some of these companies and you invest in companies that you believe in or see a pathway for them to be successful. But the thing that's most exciting to me about it, that I enjoy most, is it gives me an opportunity to really learn about so many different types of businesses. And honestly, I'm not the most intelligent person in the world, so sometimes I'd watch these presentations and things, and they just chew me up and spit me out, and I can't even follow what's going on half the time. Other times that I follow it pretty well, but no, we've done some different things, from kind of an adult, a senior brand that's targeting the needs of seniors as they age, with a focus on incontinence products, to a startup airline, to oil and gas investments, to an eco-friendly houseware brand, to all kinds of different random things. But again, like I said, it's me and my brothers and my dad and our family, and they're just little placements of money here and there. I don't spend any money hardly on myself. I don't have a lot of things that I want. I got a new car in well over a decade, or I don't really want anything personally. So I choose to, my entertainment, I guess, is to reinvest in other companies and learn about them and watch them grow, and hopefully along the way we have a couple of wins in there. But yeah, we've done several just kind of random investments through different companies. So
Yeah, no, I mean, this is part of my world, so it's just been very,
yeah,
very interesting, because I know, like, Deathcare hasn't seen a ton of, I guess, like VC capital or even angel capital in the past, and so hearing and meeting someone that was like, yeah, we have done small checks here and there. It's like it's been very interesting, because those two circles usually don't intercept that
yeah.
intersect.
No, and like I said, a big part of that's because of my siblings and the worlds that they work in. I'm the only one in the family business. My sister and I, she works at the cemetery and does a lot of advanced planning and cemetery sales. But our older siblings all are in different circles. So every once in a while, they just pull me in there with them, and I get to learn through their experiences. And we have a lot of fun doing it. We have a really close relationship. Each of my sister and my brothers were all really, really close. So it kind of gives us an excuse to get together and work together without working together, if that makes sense.
No, that's really awesome. So this is a two-part question. So on the funeral home and like cemetery side, what do you have planned for the near future for those? Do you have any things that you have exciting to announce for those two?
Yeah, so we just opened Gilbert Memorial Park in 2019, so it's still relatively new, relatively young. That was a lot of fun and really scary at the same time. We hadn't taken a lot of risks as an organization in quite some time, and a lot of people said, "You're building a cemetery in a 75-80% cremation market in 2019. Are you sure this is something that you want to do?" And I had conviction around it, and whether conviction or intelligence or ignorance, I don't know. Sometimes the lines are a little bit blurry there, but
A mix of
um,
both.
yeah, part of it was a little bit unique. Gilbert was the most populated municipality in the U.S. without a cemetery at the time. It's a private public partnership with the town of Gilbert, and so we felt pretty good about the underlying fundamentals of acquiring the what is actually a 149-year ground lease with the town for the land that we thought was affordable. And I'm just a firm believer, if you provide a better experience and are disciplined in your approach, then you'll do well. And it's done better than we could have ever imagined. We've been really fortunate. But I think more so than that, it's just been a lot of fun to see how the community has really resonated, or how it has resonated with the community. And we have events out there all the time. We use that location probably as much as the rest of our locations combined for
Hmm.
services and catered meals and unique services, where we have a pond there. So we have a lot of people that say they don't want to have a service, but then they'll come do a lantern release there. And so we sell this little water lantern release kit, and it allows people to come together and share their memories and honor in their own individual way. But we're always learning and iterating. So you build something, you take your best guess, right? I mean, that's kind of how you have to start. It's not a guess. Hopefully, it's educated. We visited cemeteries all over the Southwest and learned things that we liked about each of them. And then when we put together our team to build and design the cemetery, we were really intentional about bringing in people from different perspectives. We didn't want to be, we didn't want to be victim of groupthink and have us all kind of see the world the same way. So from our architect to the landscape architect to the cemetery designer, we all just came from different backgrounds and wanted to have something that holistically to everyone felt inspiring. So we take our best guess. That some things have worked really well. Some things we realized, we really did a poor job of putting enough seating in this area, so people aren't coming and staying in that area. Or, we did this really well, and we're kind of got lucky on that. So we continue to evolve and build out new. Our cremation garden continues to expand. Our indoor memorial continues to expand. We have had conversations with other local cities to do some similar developments, and we'll see where those go. Some are a little bit further along than others, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm actually really bullish on the cemetery industry. I think if you do it right and do it well, then it's a better opportunity than it's ever been. I know some people think that's crazy, but I'm a real believer in that.
Those are bold statements you got there.
Yeah. No, but I'm a believer in it for sure.
Okay. Oh, cool. And then let's maybe move into like after.com. Like, what are your plans there? I know you guys are a little bit, I guess you guys are around the same age. It's around the same age as Gilbert, but there's probably a stronger growth trajectory that you guys would want on that side of things. So what's next for after.com?
Yeah, I mean, plan is to continue to grow both geographically and enter new markets. We have plans to open several new markets this year, and even intensify that going into next year. But also, in addition to expanding to different markets, just expanding our offerings to the families that we serve is a big focus right now. What are things that we can provide them, as we've learned and now served, several thousand families now? What are things that we've learned through our conversations with them that could have made their experience better, or things that we could provide them that we didn't offer at the time? So really just expanding out our offerings to the families, and growing geographically, and trying to improve some of the things that need to be improved, but just maintaining discipline in what we do. we know that our learning opportunities right now can't come at the expense of the families that we serve. Every family that trusts us deserves a perfect experience. Unfortunately, we don't, we don't have a perfect, track record. No funeral home does, but we're trying to maintain the highest level of customer satisfaction and service level while also growing quickly and, maintaining that level of service that we would expect at any of our funeral homes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything I've heard and all the reviews and all of that show that you guys are doing something right. So
we hope so. Yeah, we hope so. We've got a great team. I think one of the things that we're most proud of is that we've been able to put together a really good group of people, and that's the biggest challenge. And we've done that, I think, pretty well.
So it's one of the hardest challenges in any business, I think.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's true.
So it's been about 4 years. What's the next business that you're going to start?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. No, I still have a deep love I come to the family business every single day, and that's where I'm at now. I wake up and put a white shirt and tie on, even though everyone at after is more casual. I'm still a funeral director at heart. I want to make sure that I'm not getting too far away from each business right now. So I do feel like with Gilbert being relatively young and with After being relatively young, I've got my hands full right now to make sure that those are doing well. But, I do have the entrepreneurial sickness, and you can't help but every once in a while see an opportunity and want to run at it. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, we've talked to other cities around here about doing a similar concept that we did at Gilbert, and we'll see if some of those come to fruition. But we're just excited about some of the things that we're doing now, and the team that we have, and the group of people we're working with right now. So we'll just keep our heads down and focused on that for now. And when the next opportunity comes, we'll see if it's the right time and the right move to make.
Yeah, the way you describe it, it actually sounds like the cemetery or the memorial park gives you the flexibility to actually flex your creative and entrepreneurial muscle, trying to figure out new ways in which to give services to families.
Yeah, it's just, people think that there's like a lot of overlap between funeral and cemetery, and to some degree there is, from the standpoint that your customer or the family that you're serving obviously is at the same point in their lives oftentimes, but really that's kind of where it ends. I mean, in terms of business operations and things, they are very different businesses, very, very different businesses. And so that's been fun to learn about that. And like I said, well, we're still pretty young you think about it, we were a burial dominant society for so long. And obviously cremation's grown dramatically over the last few decades and will continue to grow. But really being a predominantly cremation society, and I realize not every part of the country is in that boat quite yet, but we're still pretty young in that life cycle. And so for the first time ever, we've got families that have cremated remains at home that are now getting them to the next generation. And as generation goes to generation, the connection to those cremated remains become a little bit diluted oftentimes. And so you just think about it, we're pretty young and realizing maybe I do need a permanent space for these, or maybe there is a better way to memorialize. And I respect again that's different for each family. But I think cremation memorialization from a cemetery side is really exciting and intriguing. And I think we've done some things at Gilbert and created an experience for people that's meaningful. And I've taken a lot of energy from that and really, really enjoyed the things that I've been able to learn there. And the relationships that you get to make from families that are placed to rest at your cemetery get to be a little bit longer sometimes, because you see those families more frequently and over a longer duration of time. And that's been fun to figure out, okay, how can we not just add value in the first week, 2, 3 weeks of them losing somebody, but how do we add value to this family for months and years to come?
That's awesome. Yeah. I would say that hearing you talk about cemeteries is probably one of the most convincing arguments that I've heard for that side of the argument.
I did notice that when I said I'm bullish on cemeteries, you're like,
Well, I don't have as much. I don't have like barely any experience on the cemetery side. So
Sure.
but when you look at if you were coming into Deathcare and you were looking at all the metrics, the cemetery side would be the one that you would probably shy away from upon first view, right? Because cremations are obviously on the rise and blah blah blah. But that's why that was a very interesting topic. But the way you talk about it and the way that you mention things and what you've done and how you incorporate the cemetery with the cremation side, I feel like gives that a lot of believability and actually importance.
Well, one thing too that we talk about at Gilbert all the time is we are not selling property, but we're creating an experience, and we want to make sure that that experience is something that perpetuates for a long time. But to your point, cemeteries need to look fundamentally different now than they did a few decades ago.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a lot more creativity and reasons for people to come back. And so what we're really big on is how do we create an experience that each and every time they come back, they are engaging in something that brings them healing, whether it's our chalk walls that are installed and people come and leave messages, and they do all the time, or we facilitate these lantern releases where they can come and write a message and let the lantern float out, and just something that engages feeling in them and provides them with a reason to come, and not just come and sit, which there's nothing wrong with that. Reflection is critically important, but also provide different people with reasons to come back to the park on a consistent basis and have an experience that, like I said, promotes some of that reflection and healing that we need after we lose somebody. So yeah, I love cemeteries and the opportunity it gives you to provide an experience for people. And I think we talked about what's the next idea and things. I do think at some point there's a market for small cremation only boutique cemeteries that we'll start seeing. You've seen there's concepts of that exist at different
Yeah.
places to a certain degree, maybe on funeral home property that had an extra acre or something. But I do think at some point we're going to see these small boutique cremation only cemeteries on 1, 2, 3 acres that can be really, really well done and well designed and create a really special experience for people. So maybe that's something I'll charge at eventually, but not right now.
No, I mean, I think from what it sounds like, you will do your research and you're going to make a pretty good stab at it when you do. So I look
We'll
forward to
see
that.
what happens. But
So one question we like to ask, and as someone who has now kind of is operating a business in all parts of death care, what do you think death care looks like in 10 years?
yeah, it's a good question. One, I think I'm really bullish on the death care industry. I love what we do, and I love the people who are in this industry. I mean, you probably know, Tyler, as you've come from the outside in. There are so many good people in this industry, and that's exciting to be a part of, rub shoulders with those kind of people. I mean, funeral directors are some of the best people that I've ever been around. But I do think we're going to have to change, and we have to figure out. Some of us have been able to get away with things a little bit longer than others. Some parts of the country have adopted more quickly than other parts of the country, and or have changed more quickly than other parts. But I'd love to say that 10 years from now it's going to look dramatically different, but I don't know. I don't know if it will. I think there's a polarization that's happening in the market, and I think that those who can provide a really streamlined, frictionless, tech-enabled experience for families who are looking for that will be in a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that those companies can't do right now really, really well is provide a first-class, in-person, event-driven experience. And like what we do at Gilbert Memorial Park and things. So if you can really lean in to the service aspect of what we do, I think those are the two groups that you'll see the most growth over the next 10 years, is those who really lean into the service level that they provide families and adapting their facilities to meet that and providing them with unique opportunities to celebrate differently than it's been done in the past, as we continually see this deviation between the funeral industry and religion over time. I think those two groups and that kind of polarization that's happening will continue to happen.
So you actually think the polarization of, there's many polarizations, but let's just say on the service level of the the low cost and let's say the traditional. Do you feel like that becomes even more polarized, or do you feel like there's a way that we can bring it all back to where it kind of meets in the middle again?
Yeah, it's a good question. One, to be clear, I don't ever think service stops mattering. So one of the misconceptions about after.com is people will think like we're trying to replace human connection with technology.
Yeah.
We're trying to just
to be clear, I don't think that either.
Yeah, I know, but I think a lot of people are like, well, you're creating this experience where people just go in and type in their form fields and it's all automated. If you go read our reviews, one of the things you'll notice that all of them have an individual's name because that person has spent a lot of time with them. So really we use technology to augment human connection and provide more opportunities for that person to connect instead of spending time doing more process driven work and things like that. So to be clear, I don't think that we get to a point where service doesn't matter and we're just typing in forms and the internet's doing our job for us. I don't think that that's where we're going. But I do think that as more time goes on, like I said, you've got to have the highest level of service. So if people are looking for an experience and having a catered reception and a meal with their friends and a more casual service, really we just have to be far more adaptable. So many things I think were kind of guided for us in the past when religion and funeral service was so synonymous. There was almost rubrics in place for how we did different things, and now that's becoming less of the case. And so I do think that there will continue to be polarization from those that have services in their buildings need to do those really, really well, and then those who serve those who maybe aren't wanting those services from a funeral home will need to be more streamlined and efficient and provide more services. I don't think it will be enough just to be affordable. You're going to need to provide a lot more service in the future.
Yeah. Well, some of the guests that I've had on tend to believe that even if they go like with a company like After, where you do the best service, but then you, let's just say, return the cremated remains to the family, they still go off and do some type of service. Mm-hmm. And because of, the past of the people in death care, the profession itself, it's kind of gotten to the point where they almost pushed people out of the funeral home.
Yeah.
And as an opportunity, if you're doing things well, and you can actually bring them back. Mm-hmm. Right. So, you talk about people doing services outside of the funeral home, but that's less of like they don't actually want to do it with the funeral home, but it's more like they've been kind of conditioned to do that because of, cremation was pushed off to the side for so long.
Yeah. Well, and we didn't invest in the infrastructure to do it really, really well. I think it's part of it too. But like at After, even though we don't right now, we are huge advocates for people gathering, and we encourage our families to have some sort of gathering together. We're big believers in the importance of that. But you're right. But I think because now they have optionality, say they get the cremated remains back of their loved one, now they can again choose, and they have more time to choose. Yeah. Okay, where are we going to have this service? And if you don't have a great reputation or great facilities to host memorials of that, you're going to get overlooked. I mean, for example, at Gilbert, in the next week, I think we have 3 services where we actually didn't perform the cremation for the family, but then they're coming to us after because of our facilities and things. They want to have their memorial there. And some people may say, well, that's crazy. Why are you doing that? But it works. It works.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, sure, of course, we would love to serve the family from start to finish. And of course, we take care, and our facilities and things are at a more affordable price for those who we serve from start to finish. But we are able to earn the trust and the service part of the business from families that go elsewhere for the cremation because we do that part of our business really well as well.
Awesome. Well, I mean, that's just a testament to your facilities and the experiences you provide. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Cool. Well, is there anything else that you want the world? That's not the world, but the death care community
our small little world.
Yeah.
Small little world. No, I don't think so. I think again, my biggest thing and what I believe most is meeting people where they're at and then providing with the highest level of service there. And so That's what my personal mission is. And, some people will say like, oh, well, like they'll have a distaste for cremation, or they'll have a distaste for alkaline hydrolysis, or, whatever some of the new disposition methods and things. And I just take a very kind of measured approach that whatever it makes that family feel adds some level of peace and healing and feels best to them. I want to meet them there and provide them with the highest level of care and compassion and service where they're at. So whether it's Gilbert or after.com, or I was instrumental in helping getting alkaline hydrolysis, I don't know if I'll do anything with it or not, but getting that approved here in Arizona, I'm just a believer in providing families with options that they feel are best for them and meeting them there. And I think if we all do that better as an industry, then it really improves us all and improves the experience for the families. And that's theoretically why all of us are here anyways.
Yeah, no, and that was just really part of the reason that I really wanted you to come on, is just because I know you have after.com and you have your funeral home, but the way that you talk about after.com, it just comes off a lot different than just some online brand. And
Sure.
So I just really wanted to hear you speak about that, and did not disappoint.
Well, I think no, I appreciate it. It's interesting. Some of the other companies that have come into the online space have almost borderline disrespectful tone in how they talk about the funeral industry, as if like we can't do anything right, and we're just going to come run circles around these old funeral directors. And I mean, my take on the funeral industry couldn't be more different. I mean, I love funeral directors. I love the small town funeral homes. I watched my father and what he poured into his business and the people that he served and the people that worked for him. I have just a deep amount of admiration and love and respect for our industry and for the independent funeral home owner and for the licensed funeral director, that I will not say anything bad ever about them. But again, with After, it's a different value proposition for a family that is seeking that, and we want to provide them with the best service if that's what they're desiring.
And I will say that from my experience in working with multiple huge brands, they don't view it the way that you just mentioned. It's not a disdain. It's more, serve them where they're at.
Yeah.
Value service. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Bryce. This has been very enlightening. I'm really excited for all your new ventures. I can't wait to see what you guys do in the next 1 to 5 years.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting ride one way or another. So we've got a lot to figure out, a lot to accomplish. And, everyone wants it to sound like, everything's just humming perfectly and smoothly. And, you always wish that was the case. But as you know, as somebody that's got a startup and things, there are days that are full of hope and optimism. And there are days that are full of fear and and concern and wondering how it's all going to work. And we're no different, both at After and the rest of our businesses. So we're here for the ride no matter what.
Yeah. That's every day. It's just a mix of which one is presenting more that day. Yeah.
That's right. Which of those wolves is winning?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Bryce. It was a pleasure. And we'll catch everyone next time. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you ever want to know more, please find us at directcremation.com.